2 years after launching their first direct drive wheelbase into the market, Thrustmaster are back to treat us with another direct drive, but this time targeting the budget sector. The T598 is a complete bundle, the 5Nm wheelbase, a detachable wheel, and a 2-pedal pedal set. The T598 is both PC and PlayStation compatible. Currently, at this time, there is no Xbox version. Priced at £450 or $499 US, the T958 is by far the cheapest PlayStation compatible direct drive wheel you can buy right now. I'm not a console gamer, so I can't evaluate its performance on the PlayStation, but I will sample several PC racing games in this review, so that should at least provide a broad assessment of the capabilities of this product. To start things off though, let me take you through a tour of the T958 bundle. The wheelbase alone without an attached wheel weighs 4.9 kilograms. Dimensionally, it's only 12 centimeters in depth and 16 centimeters including the steering column. The height is 22 centimeters or 24.5 centimeters when mounted with the included table clamp. Width-wise, the T598 is 21.5 centimeters. The casing is mostly aluminium with plastic covers on the front and rear. The power button and sockets are located at the back. The pedals plug into the wheelbase and there's also a socket to support a Thrustmaster shifter here. There's also a mystery socket that the manual describes as unused port, feature available soon. One wonders what plans they have for that. There are 4 large buttons on the front, used to access the menu for changing the wheel settings, force feedback strength, damper friction, wheel rotation angle, and so forth. Multiple profiles can be stored and accessed. Outside of the menu settings, the screen functions as a dashboard display, showing speed, gear, position, timings, RPM, or lap number. The small size of the screen means only one type of data is shown at a time. I discovered during my testing the dashboard did not pick up the telemetry from every game. The wheel attachment is the same proprietary quick release that first debuted on the T818. A locking lug operated by a 3-part hinged lever holds the steering wheel in place. This component is a combination of metal and plastic. The wheel side male part of this quick release system is a hard plastic composite. I found no issues with the quick release. It provided a secure and firm connection to the wheel. There's no play, but you can see a little flex from the wheel as I apply some lateral force, and that's quite normal. The 300mm round steering wheel is made from hard plastic. It's lightweight, weighing just over 800 grams. The plastic has a light matte texture with the grips covered in a rubberized material. We get some good sized paddle shifters that feature a nice tactile snap action. The mounting plate has a fixed angle of 15 degrees, and this comes with 2 chunky plastic clamps that do a good job at anchoring the wheelbase to a desk. In case you're watching on a small phone screen, maybe you can't see, but the rocking is the table being pulled. The wheelbase is not going anywhere. The pedal set frame and heel plates are made from steel. The pedal faces are plastic. The cable that plugs into the pedals resembles an audio cable. Both pedals use spring tension and linear magnetic sensors for the input. The notches in the frame are used to adjust the distance of pedal motion. When you install the software drivers, it comes with the Thrustmaster panel. It shows us the hardware being used, plus checks if we're running the latest drivers and firmware. There's a testing section for checking all of the inputs are registering correctly. Things are fine until we hit the settings section. This is disabled, preventing you from making any wheelbase setting adjustments. This is rather disappointing as we are about 4 months since the product launch. In the meantime, you'll need to access the settings on the wheelbase. I'm going to get the pedals out of the way first. Full disclosure, the only footage I recorded for this review using these pedals are the clips where I'm showing you the pedals in the video, like what you can see on your screen right now. For everything else, I was running the SimNet Pro pedals. On PC, I can pair this wheelbase with any pedal set I choose to run with. The fact of the matter is, these Thrustmaster bundled pedals are basic. They are not excellent, but certainly fine for casual racing games. Now, since my main interest is sim racing games, I picked a more proficient set of pedals for most of my testing. Grid Legends is one title I found was well suited for the T598 pedals. I guess we can call it a simcade, where the game physics are quite forgiving, and you can stamp on the brake and the car won't easily spin out. Where more precise braking is required in a sim racing game, a basic linear input brake like this doesn't perform as well. Thrustmaster will be releasing a load cell brake upgrade for these pedals in the future, so that's good news, but for now this is what we have to work with. To be fair, as entry-level pedals go, this is one of Thrustmaster's better attempts. Some of their plastic ones are pretty terrible. On the other hand, these are metal and solid, the pedal motion is decent and adjustable. The heel plate is small, but they've just about managed to get away with it, at least for my UK size 8 feet. Now, if you do have large feet, these pedals might prove to be a bit snug. Thrustmaster have also kept things basic with the 30cm plastic steering wheel. It feels tacky. One could argue it keeps the price down for the bundle. Personally, I would have liked to have had the option to buy the wheelbase for less without either the pedals or the steering wheel. I already have some Thrustmaster wheels. I don't need this one. This is essentially a downgrade for me. I do like the size of the wheel, and being lightweight is a positive for the 5Nm wheelbase torque, and the paddle shifters are decent. Handling the wheel, I can feel the seam around the edge and the holes behind the grip, so it's not exactly a quality feel. Now, wearing gloves will help disguise this, but I do think Thrustmaster could have done a better job. I'm not saying it's not a perfectly functional steering wheel, but clearly it's a job done on the cheap. I can't say I'm not disappointed, because I am. However, what's not disappointing is the force feedback delivered from the T598. I noticed immediately how smooth and easily the wheel spins when not powered on. It's low friction and no hint of notchiness. That's a good first sign. Any friction or texture felt here is likely still going to remain when driving. My assumption was correct. The sensations felt through the wheel are very clean. It's just the force feedback effects without any other impediment. The force feedback has plenty of detail, right down to the track texture and small bumps. In Race Room, you can see the cockpit movement is reacting to the track undulations. I also get this exactly through the wheel. As the car travels the uneven surface, the suspension compresses and relaxes. The wheel squirms and becomes heavier and lighter in my hands. I can really feel that suspension working. When I ride a curb, each one is different. Some are low and lightly textured, and some contain more aggressive features that will punish you. And the force feedback delivers the sensation perfectly through the wheel. There's real meat and depth there. If you're upgrading from something like a G29 or equivalent entry-level hardware, you'll be impressed and surprised how much unique detail is being generated from the game, and you'll realise what you've been missing. The generic rumble effects you've been used to so far only give you a flavour of the situation, but there's actually a lot more going on, and the T598 is able to pick up and spit this all out through the force feedback. Now, for reasons that will be clearer later, I mounted a 15 Newton meter Fanatec Club Sport DD Plus, and I've reduced the torque output setting to 5 Newton meters. And I will say the 5 Newton meter T598 does as good a job as the Club Sport DD Plus at 5 Newton meters. The sensitivity of the effects and detail are on the same level. That's really impressive. Okay, I'm not telling you the T598 is as good as the more expensive and powerful Club Sport DD Plus. When you increase the torque of the Fanatec wheelbase, it pulls ahead. Effects have more volume, and there's a very clear advantage when it comes to counter-force resistance. But I wanted to express how capable the T958 is. I'm convinced this is as good as it gets for a 5 Newton meter wheelbase. A weakness shared by all 5 Newton meter wheelbases, and including anything of a lower torque too, is how much counter-force resistance the motor is able to build and hold. Heavy braking into corners or turning the car at speed, the weight of the car shifts and the outside tyres are pushed into the road surface. During this phase, the weight of the steering wheel increases, fighting the car rotation as you cling on to maintain traction. The counterforce weight from the T958 hits its limit quickly, and it's not exactly heavy resistance. This is where more powerful wheelbases shine. More torque generates a heavier peak of counterforce weight resistance, and that also means a greater range of progressive feedback too, and this provides a fuller picture of the limits. The fact I normally use a higher torque wheelbase is a feature from the force feedback I do lean on, so moving over to the T598, it is something of a downgrade, I can tell you that. Largely, it was fine. It didn't take too long to readjust to understand how to drive within its capability. Now, I haven't conducted any hot lap timings, so I couldn't tell you with any honesty if I'm actually faster with a higher torque wheelbase or not. But I have to say, it is more exciting with a more powerful wheelbase, so that alone does make it worth it. But I don't want to take anything away from the T598, as it may not be as powerful as I'd normally like it to be, but the force feedback fidelity is still damn good. Overshoot is a special feature Thrustmaster advertises as being capable of boosting the output of effects by 100%. In the wheel settings, you will find two options, labelled low and high boost. They can be set from -2 to +2. Low boost relates to light and medium force feedback effects, such as rumble strips and road texture. High boost covers collisions, meaning trading paint with other cars or maybe hitting a wall. Overshoot was something I was really keen to explore. Thrustmaster make a big deal of it, the 100% boost to effects. This may give the impression this is something unique to the T598. It's a 5 Nm torque wheelbase that can double the output of certain effects to 10 Nm, or at least that's what I'm led to believe. Unfortunately, the way Overshoot has been framed is both misleading and sort of correct to a point. The T598 has a constant torque of 5 Nm, so consider that the limit of what the motor can maintain continually, like when turning into a corner and the counter-force weight resistance. The second measure of a motor is the peak torque. These are more powerful short bursts of energy, so that will be the curbs and the collision force feedback effects. Constant and peak torque is a feature of all motors. To extract the most out of the wheelbase, I maxed out Overshoot +2 on both the low and high boost settings. If you lower the numbers, then yes, there is a noticeable reduction in the strength of those related effects. So it is a thing, and there's no argument it does actually work. However, during my testing with Overshoot at +2, I wasn't convinced the T598 was doing anything above and beyond any other 5 Nm wheelbase. Understandably, I was confused, so that's the purpose of the Club Sport DD set at 5 Nm to compare results. You could complain that a DD Plus is not a fair match, as it still remains the beefier motor regardless. So with that in mind, I mounted the Moser R5, which no one can argue is a fair match. What I discovered with all three wheelbases at 5 Nm, the strength of the effects were essentially the same. So my conclusion is yes, the T598 boost settings, or Overshoot if you want to call it that, can be used to tune the strength of the peak torque force feedback effects. But we're not actually getting any more robust effects than the other wheelbases already at 5 newton meters. At the very least, it's cheeky marketing from Thrustmaster. At worst, a misleading ploy to sell this wheelbase on the promise of something that is not actually anything special. You decide. My observed oscillation is extreme with this wheelbase. It's common for direct drive wheelbases to have some level of oscillation, but this is the worst I've encountered. Lifting my grip from the wheel just briefly and the car almost instantly loses control. Wheel oscillation does vary from game to game. AMS2 here is probably the worst offender for this, and for example ACC, it's not a problem at all, suffering from virtually no oscillation. Normally, to solve this, you pile on some wheel damping and friction to settle it, but in this instance it did nothing to help, and personally for lower torque wheelbases I don't want to add an artificial layer of damping as it soaks up the force feedback detail. Since driving requires at least one hand on the wheel, this shouldn't be an issue for you, but this is still an observation you should be aware of. The unusual shape of the T598 is due to the disc-shaped axial flux motor inside the metal shell, giving it this tall, slim profile. For context, this is a size comparison next to a G923, something you might be a bit more familiar with. It's worth bearing this in mind as a consideration for how the wheelbase is going to sit within your planned installation. The ergonomics are important. I have my monitor sat on top of the wheelbase. It's the same type of layout I run for every wheelbase on my rig, and I do notice my monitor is pushed up a couple of inches higher than normal. I wouldn't say this is an issue for me, I can see the screen just fine, but I would say I do prefer it a bit lower than this. I guess it's what I'm used to, but I do believe it's worth pointing out. Just be prepared, the unusual shape of the T958 may cause some awkwardness for some people getting the wheelbase mounted to the correct height, simply just to get your hands on that wheel comfortably, or how it sits in relationship to your screen setup. The price of the T598 makes it stand out as the cheapest PlayStation compatible direct drive wheel currently on the market. The next cheapest option will be the Fanatec Gran Turismo 5Nm DD Pro Ready to Race bundle at $749. The $250 difference makes the Thrustmaster option the one to go for. Technically, the DD Pro is an 8Nm torque wheelbase, only restricted by the included power brick, and you can easily pick up the power supply upgrade from AliExpress for quarter of the price that Fanatec sell their price gouged official upgrade for. But essentially, if 5Nm is all you need, then the T598 does make a lot of sense for you PlayStation owners. If you're exclusively a PC racing game enthusiast, then you have many more options to play with. For instance, the super compact Camma C5 and even cheaper 5Nm wheelbase than the T598. There's also the Moser R5 that's already cropped up in this video. If you ask me, at this point in time, I would suggest you spend your money on the CSL DD Ready to Race bundle. The 5Nm edition is only $399, $100 less than the T598, and then just go ahead and buy that power supply upgrade from AliExpress. That'll put you back another $30 and you'll have yourself an 8Nm direct drive setup for $70 less than the T598. And I promise you that additional 3Nm of torque is worth it. So, lots of stuff covered in this one. Here's a summary of the highlights as a reminder. Any questions, or if you just want to express your T598 experience, do drop a comment. Those other wheelbases I mentioned as potential alternatives for PC sim racers, I do have reviews for those. Check out the links below.